Hello and welcome. I'm Bigfoot, and this is episode 18 of my Let's Play series. And if I'm being completely honest, it's probably going to be the final one, or at least of the build process anyway. There's a couple of little videos I want to make once everything's been finished. Kind of a test video. I want to do a test video on my perimeter wall, and I want to do some tests on the SPM. I don't know whether that'll be worth a whole video on its own. We'll see how things go. We'll see how things. Yeah, I have a loose plan, but does not necessarily mean that I'm going to keep to that plan. So, last episode we launched some rockets and we finished off the time lapse. And what that means is that I've got a bit more freedom to approach problems how I feel like it, rather than just approaching the problems that need to be fixed and sorted, because that's where the time lapse happens to be. So I can kind of got a bit more freedom. I can kind of take things as I want to take things as I want and do the things that I feel like doing at any one time. I mean, there's a couple of things that I need to work on that's on my mind. So immediately, I haven't got much materials in the factory. Whilst I was building this racetrack, I've had to cut off the copper that was coming in. So I don't have any copper, which I don't have any chips. I don't have anything really. So I need to re-engineer this so it's all hooked up again. I also need to play around the racetrack. When I was doing that big finale on the time lapse, I was just whacking down racetrack just so I could get it built. It's not very elegant. There are a lot of points in it. I mean, I have already started. This is a lot narrower. I've started to come and trim it back. I think that's what I did. I think I started here, worked my way round, got to here, and I was like, oh, that's it for the night, and that's where I stopped. So this is how I'm kind of trying to piece the corner together. So I'll start off with a diagonal line, and I'll remove bits of it to create the curve. And I want to add all my curbs, the red and white curbs. That really adds a bit of detail. So this corner's just rubbish. It needs to be a whole lot narrower. Anyway, so that's one thing I need to do. I need to kind of get some supplies back into the factory. Also, most of this bottom half of the factory is not really being used, and I'd really like to get that going. I want just something just floating through would be nice. So yeah, so maybe start hooking up some resources would be a good thing to do as well. That'd be number two. Number three, I think I'm gonna play around with my little track. I think I'm gonna make this straight a lot longer. So I'm gonna bring it through a bit, turn it around a corner, bring it back again. I think I'm gonna do that at some point. Yeah, so for the time being, it's just various things. I'm just going to be pottering about, playing around with things. Nothing too specific. Just fixing things that are on my mind, things that I know need to be fixed at some point. I suppose whilst we're talking about it, I do still want to fix this path. That's still annoying me. Yeah, it's just a case of running around and just plodding along. Just fixing little things, and then hopefully at some point I'll arrive at a moment where I'll come back to this same sort of question. What do I need to do now? And I go like, well, not much. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. Just potter about, really. Just finally getting round to doing a rocket pack. It's only been 365 hours. Uh, I maybe could and should have sorted it out sooner, but up to this point, I've been quite happy. I haven't needed it. Now I need it. I mean, I'm going to be running around all over the place now, collecting resources, trying to get to all these patches of ore. So, yeah, the rocket pack's going to be pretty essential from this point onwards. Oh, and also what I wanted to do whilst I'm over here, let's find a gap in the wall. I don't want to. I've just been running around filling in gaps, trying to bring some finality to this base. That's another reason why the jetpack's going to be useful, because up until now I've been just demolishing bits of wall and leaving the holes in the wall so I can run through. From here I'm gonna fill in these gaps, and then I'm gonna be jumping over. Oh, I've got no rocket pack yet. Then I'm just gonna be jumping over these walls from here on out. So that was what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add some construction robots to the network. How many can I grab? Oh, let's just do this. Yeah, let's do all of them. Sod it. These ones can go back in. Sweet. Right. Onward. Okay, so this is a pretty big topic, to be honest. Um, I should have talked about trains earlier in the series, and the kind of the reason why I wasn't was because I couldn't paint the full picture. I couldn't tell the whole story. So I'm now at the end point of that kind of process, and I can now talk about the whole subject without having missing parts that I haven't built and can't talk about. So trains and patches of ore. Um, the goal, or I have said there are several goals that I'm trying to achieve. So goal number one, if we look at the map, we have a whole series of patches of ore, varying sizes, varying capacities. They're all different. And what I want to achieve is I want to load the amount of trains that I need evenly. So if we take copper, for example, I've got 12 trains. So I've got all these varying different sizes of patches of ore. How do I load those 12 trains as evenly as possible so that what I really don't want is one train to be going really slowly and that be the bottleneck. Now, the whole system is based on an average, so it shouldn't matter too much if one train is going a little bit slower than the others. But I still want to, I still want to get as maximum. I want to get the best that I can. There's no point settling for less than that. So, how do I specifically treat these patches of ore in order to try and load all of the trains as evenly as possible? That's the goal. Now, the other part of that conversation, the part that I probably should have talked about earlier, was the trains themselves. So, all of the factory up to now has been sized, and by that I mean, how many furnaces, the ratio of storage carts on a train to the furnaces that it needs to feed. What is that sort of ratio? In previous maps, what I've used is a value of 18 ore per storage cart per second average, and that's a long-term average. So trains coming in and out, delivering ore, some trains going a little bit slow, some trains going a little bit fast. That was the value of the average that I was using in my previous bases. It didn't quite work very well, and the conclusion that I came to was that the patches of ore that I was using, they weren't enough. I just wasn't feeding the factory with enough. The patches of ore would run out before I could really get the full capacity out of the factory. So that's another reason why at the start of this base I juiced up all of the patches of ore and increased their quantities, because I knew that I was going to need a lot. And if I building a big factory and then having to build a dozen or so outposts to feed it all, I mean, that would have been a freaking nightmare. So the value of what I was using before was the value of 18 ore per storage cart per second. That was the average that I was trying to achieve. But I did a train performance experiment video, and in that video I for the longer trains, sort of like 4,000 tiles away from the train needs to travel, I was only really able to achieve an average of about 15. So when I built this factory, that was the value I've used. I've used 15. Now, in practical terms, what that means is I've got less furnaces and more trains proportionately in this base than I have in previous bases. In other bases, I've had less. Because I've used a greater number, I've been able to mathematically at least plan out a base which has more capacity in it for the number of trains. This is a weird one. It's difficult to really explain. Well, I'm trying my best. I mean, I hope it's getting across. Anyway, so as a result of that train performance experiment, I'm now using a value of 15. Now, how does that come in? How does that come into what we're talking about with these patches of ore? So, if we continue on the talk of copper, so I need 12 trains throughout for all of these patches of ore. I need 12 trains. So if we take this individual patch of ore that we've got over here, which I've already laid out, what I'm trying to achieve is each of these conveyor belts will feed a single storage cart. So what that means is that each one of these conveyor belts needs to feed 15 ore per second average over the long term. Now obviously I've used red conveyor belts and I could easily use yellows. I mean, if I'm only looking for 15, then the yellow belts would be enough. But, you know, in previous bases I wanted 18, and I like the red belts. And if there's a little bit more, I don't want to build this like right on the limits. That if I built it with yellow belts, it would be right on the limits and I wouldn't be able to push it. Whereas with reds, I can push it. I can essentially maybe achieve double from these particular ones, from these particular patches of ore. And what that means is I can achieve half on other patches of ore which are slightly farther away, by trying to get this average. So if I'm trying to achieve 15 ore per second on each of these conveyor belts, then I need a certain number of mines to be able to achieve that. Now, if we just use the mines that are not juiced up with white science, no, not there. Here we are. Where are we? Here we go. So we're already at maximum with the mines without going up to white science. And at this point, we can achieve. I'm getting all my buttons messed up. I think it's 0.65. We can achieve 0.5. Yes, plus the 30%. So we can achieve 0.65 ore per second per mine. So let's get. Where's my calculator? Oh, I'm losing. Oh, there it is. Right. So in order to achieve 15 ore per second, we need 15 divided by 0.65, which is 23. So I need 23 mines to feed each of these conveyor belts in order to achieve that 15 ore per second average. However, over time, these mines are going to deplete. This ore patch is going to shrink in size, and some of the mines are not going to be. They're going to need to be demolished. They're not going to be useful. They're going to be completely pointless. So, if we take, just for example, say we take one of these central lines, I have 36 mining drills. That's obviously a lot more than the 23 I need. However, over time we're going to lose several of these. Particularly the edge ones. If we're in the middle, this patch of ore over time, the middle is never going to deplete really. From a numbers perspective, the size of the patch of the ore, this raw number that you can see, this 36 million, almost doesn't matter at all, because at some point the ore is not going to be able to produce enough ore per second to be able to make these trains function the way that they should. At some magic moment, there's not going to be enough mines, there's not going to be enough ore, and the factory will slow down from that point. So this number, this 36 million, doesn't matter because there's still going to be ore on the map when the patch is not useful to me. So for these central patches, we're probably going to lose easily 10, 12, those 10, 12 that I've got in reserve. That might not even be enough. Who knows? I mean, I'm still looking for this average, and this patch of ore is close to the base, so it's not really going to be critical. But for these edge cases, these edge patches of ore, these ones are going to deplete much, much faster. As I said, this central part is going to remain. So a lot of these mines are going to be useful forever. But these edge ones, are going to go. So the way I say it is that I've deemed each of these conveyor belts to be a guarantee of 15 ore per second for a significant period of time. So these edge ones, are going to deplete over time, and because they're unreliable, they're right on the edge of the strip. So the only part of it that's really reliable is this one here, and that's still not really in this central zone. So by joining them together, hopefully I can achieve that 15. I mean, that's 15 is still not a lot. 23 mining drills. What have I got set up over for these? I've got 75. So I can lose 60% of them or something. 65% of these mining drills before it goes below that value. Probably these central ones will probably become the bottleneck. And just because of the way the patch is laid out, it felt like to make this, I needed to join these three together to make a single belt's worth. Whereas over on this side, because they're longer, I've just felt that I've only needed to add two. That's just how I viewed this particular patch of ore. It's on a moment-to-moment basis, to be honest. The point is this. I have 5 belts that I've guaranteed are going to achieve a certain value. And in order to feed a single train has, in this base, has 6 storage carts. So this would not be sufficient, in my mind, to feed a single train. So in order to achieve that, I need to add more copper to this particular base, this particular train station, to get that full train capacity. And that is what I've done with this patch of ore over here. So this little patch, this is a much smaller patch of ore. And I've deemed that I can get 3 conveyor belts worth out of this. So I've got this one here, and this one here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one to add to those other 5 to make the 6 to feed a single train. And then I'm going to use these 2 to feed somewhere else on the map where there's more copper. So over here I'm going to need, I mean, looking at it, it looks, this is a lot of copper. I'm probably going to need at least two individual train stations, maybe even 3. Depending on how I feel. So I'm going to bring those 2 conveyor belts that are sticking out here, I'm going to bring them all the way over to here and add to this copper and balance this out. Now the length of the conveyor belt is almost irrelevant. Once the ore has reached the other train stations, once that conveyor belt is completely full, then the distance that it needs to travel from A to B is completely irrelevant. So I'm just going to use these 2 conveyor belts and add to these 2, however many stations I decide to have over here. Now, if we use that same kind of process to look at a different patch of ore, let's see if we come up here to have a look at my iron, which is massive, to be honest. But what I've deemed I can get out of this patch of ore is 9, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so I've got 9 conveyor belts that I've deemed I can get that guarantee out of. Obviously, I need multiples of 6 for these trains, so this would be 1.5 trains, which doesn't work. So I've had a quick look around the map, and I've got this kind of I've got this tiny patch of ore which is almost completely unusable, except for the fact it seems to provide me with those 3 conveyor belts that I'm not getting over there. So this little tiny awkward patch, I've got 1, 2, 3 conveyor belts. I'm going to join these 3 with those other 9. Maybe intermingle them a little bit. You know, I'm kind of expecting to achieve less of an average from this patch than I am from the other one, so I kind of want to join them and mix them a little bit so that it averages it out. But it should be fine, I think. It should be fine. There's enough in here. For this one, I've got these 3 are one lane, these middle 2, and then these 4. So I have joined a lot of mining drills together to try and make that the three conveyor belts. You know, in other bases I might have made this 4. Maybe in other bases I might have made 2. For this one, I've made it 3. So that's how I'm going to make the 2 full trains worth for this particular set of train stations. Now, if we look at the other resources that I've got lying around for this particular train station, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about one set of train stations, one clump of train stations, all for a set of resources. We've also got this patch of coal. A patch of coal, I've got 5 conveyor belts. So I'll need to add some more coal. And I've got this big patch down here. This looks like it might probably feed another 4 or 5 conveyor belts. So I'm still not going to be a multiple of 6, but I'll be closer to it. And there are a lot of patches of coal around. So I can definitely make up what I don't get from these 2 patches of ore with other patches from somewhere else in this sort of vicinity of the map. In this area we also have a patch of stone. This patch of stone is pathetic, it's tiny, it's only given me 2 belts worth, so I'll need to take that somewhere else on the map to get a full train, or bring in some stone from somewhere else. Considering it's only 2 conveyor belts, and it's a very, very small patch, and I've got, you know, bigger patches over here, I'll probably bring those 2 over here and join them with some other train station that I'll build over on this side of the map. I've also got this patch of oil. It's kind of a failure of my train performance experiment to not test fluids, you know, not test how quickly trains can deliver fluids over those same distances. and I thoroughly regret not doing it. However, there are a lot more variables, like the pumps, the delivery of the fluids. You know, how many pipes do you need? It would have been a lot more. It would have been very complicated to add in and to include. I still feel like I should have done, but I didn't. And so now I'm kind of left in a place where I don't really know what trains are capable of delivering fluid-wise. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to assume that this patch of ore is a single train. I've got this one over here. I've got more over here. Yeah, this I'm only going to include this patch of oil for this set of train stations, and I'm just going to deem that one train. So in this area, with this kind of offshoot of the train network, this spigot, I'm going to have a single copper train. I'm going to have 2 trains of iron, 2 trains of coal, and a single train of oil, all coming to this one station. That does sound like a lot. Can I join it in somewhere else? Maybe I can join this. So this train track here, this is my main exit out of the base. So I really want to keep that free of everything, because if I do eventually have to have an outpost, I want it to have kind of priority access right into the middle. And I have got a lot of, you know, opportunities for trains. Maybe I need to join this together a little bit better. Anyway, I suppose I can worry about that a little bit later. Yeah, okay, let's just deal with it brass tacks at the moment. So that's really how I'm going to go about this. And, you know, I'm just going to, you know, these capacities, these numbers, they're useful to know, you know, how big it is and to compare it to other patches. But in terms of, you know, working out, putting that number into a formula which will give me something useful factory that I can use, that it's not useful. You know, the only thing the thing that matters is how many, is the density of it. You know, it's how many mining drills can be placed on it. So although this patch is, you know, what, less than half the value of this one, there's probably 20% more mining drills, there's slightly more area. So, you know, the numbers, these capacity, these big numbers on the map don't really matter really. They're just there to give you some sort of context. Yeah, so that's how I'm going to piece this together. I think I'm just going to build the train stations individually and then work out how I'm going to join them together once I've got them on the map. It's completely impossible for me to understand how that's going to fit together at this moment. So, yeah. Just more mines, more stations. Fun times. I mean, whatever montage of clips I've come up with to represent what I've just been through is not going to be enough. It's just so painful. It's the least. It's the aspect of this game I least look forward to, is setting up all of the mines and the train stations, all of that stuff. It just takes forever. Anyway, it's all done now, all sorted. So let's just have a quick look at it. That didn't work. There we go. So pretty much all of the resources are now hooked into the system, or at least connected up to a train station, which can then deliver it into the main base. There are a few resources I haven't used, so we've got like this little patch of coal down here, which is kind of marooned, not really set up with anything. I do know I've got I've got a couple of patches over here. I've got a patch of coal and a patch of iron. Another patch of iron. There's a few bits and pieces lying around that I haven't used. I've got, you know, in terms of iron, I've got way too much iron, and I've probably got too much coal as well, to be honest. So I've probably got too much of everything. Yeah, I've just plumbed in everything, and then I'll just figure it out as I go along. So let's have a look at some train station names, because that's informative. So if we imagine this base as a clock face, as in 12 o'clock at the top and 6 o'clock at the bottom, then that's kind of how I've named the clumps of train stations. So this one is kind of 6 o'clock, then we've got 7 o'clock and 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then we can kind of fit, I could fit something in here, 7:45 if I wanted. It kind of has some flexibility to adapt. I mean, I'm not going to need any extra stations, but it's just an easy way of setting all of this stuff out. So yeah. Hooray. 14 individual clumps of train stations. It's too many. It is way too many. I'm not going to need that many. But it's done. As I said, it's all sorted. So, moving forward, I'm just looking around and seeing lots and lots of little things that need sorting. So we've got kind of this set of, originally there was a patch of copper and coal or something here. I removed those quite some time ago, so I need to fill in the gaps. And this little track needs a lot of work. It's got no electricity, no robots, no. And I want to extend this to the main straight. I'm going to extend it up. I'm going to bring it up here, I think, and bring it back down again, just to give it some length. It's just pathetic at the moment. You won't be able to get any speed. So, yeah, that needs some work. If we look, let's have a quick look at the robot network. So it's good, but there's some big gaps. And these are gaps mainly because I've had to try and jerry-rig these huge train junctions. These are massive. They don't look particularly big on the screen, but they are just massive. So I need to re-plumb in the power and the robots from where I removed it. Some of them I've done. I've done them over here. That seems pretty decent. Big gaps. So just some little things. I suppose let's not deal with it like that. Right. Number one. Number one is I still don't have any train stations in the base for my stone. I've allotted it this space. I've set it aside. Everything, I think it's the right sort of dimensions. I never actually built the damn thing. So that's job number one. Job number one is to build some train stations for my stone inputs. I've got to fill in the hole. I've got to fill in more lake. As always, got to fill in more lake. Job one done. Nice. Next, what we have here is a gap, and I've kind of been saving it for, for something, some purpose that I need or didn't anticipate needing, and now I do need or want. And for this foot, or at least a little bit of it anyway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something I've not done in a base before, which is I'm going to set up a uranium ammunition production. That's what I'm going to do here. And the reason is because of my perimeter wall video, which got a few requests of people asking, quite legitimately and understandably, to be honest, where's the test? Where's the final video? Let's see this perimeter wall in action. And the simple fact of the matter was, I was nowhere near ready. This base is nowhere near ready for a full. I can't make noise with it yet. I need to make noise with it. I need to make pollution in order to attract the biters. And nowhere near ready. By the time of releasing that video, I was months away. Anyway, so what I want to do as part of some sort of test of the perimeter wall is I want to run a test with red ammunition, see how that performs, and then I want to switch it over quickly. It's going to take a little while, but I want to switch it over from red ammunition to green ammunition, like that, and then I can run another test with it with green ammunition, or at least some kind of similar test. That's the idea. I want to run it. I want to have a look at the perimeter wall with both different ammunition types and see if there's a genuine difference. There's obviously going to be a genuine difference, otherwise they wouldn't have them in there. But I've never used green ammunition. I've never really seen the point. Red has always done the job for me. So let's see if green does the. Let's see if green. Let's see if green makes a real big difference and is worthwhile for any time in the future. And I'm guessing almost immediately that it will be worthwhile. But that's the test that I want to do, and that's what I'm going to use for this area here. I'm just going to set up a little production site. I mean, what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to set up some storage because I want this change to be quick. So I'm going to set up some storage up here, which can extract all of the red ammunition from the current perimeter wall, and then deliver the green one in. So I want a set of storage so I can extract all of the red off the current perimeter wall and store it somewhere, and then I can slowly convert that into green ammunition over time. But I also want a pre-stored bank of green ammunition so that when that red ammunition comes in, I can immediately deliver the green ammunition to the perimeter wall, and I can just do that test quickly. That's what's on my mind. I don't want to have to wait for hours. So if I can get that going now, whilst I'm fixing all these other problems, dealing with all these other things, these last kind of snags, that can build up in the background. That's kind of the plan. And bosh, done. Uranium ammo is filling up nicely, so I've got this kind of bank of storage chests. I ran it through my calculator. These storage chests will store about 200,000 uranium ammo, so that should be enough just to get started. And then I've got kind of this bank of storage up here, so this is what I want to absorb all of the existing ammo, the existing red ammo that's currently flying around the perimeter wall. That's going to be stored here. And I have just run around kind of filling in some of the blanks with regards to how I'm going to distribute this around the base, which are these kind of lines here which run down the center. It's not finished, still needs work, but it's done for the moment. That's building up nicely. That's all I needed it for this particular moment. And I suppose next problem would be, I mean, let's just go and do it. Let's sort out those furnaces I was talking about a moment ago. Yeah, let's do that. I'm definitely at a point where if I see a problem, I'm going to address it and try and fix it, and then get carried away and do a whole lot of stuff that I wasn't planning on doing. So that's what I was doing. I was filling in a whole lot of concrete paths just because, you know, why not? Mine's all sorted, not mines. Furnace is all sorted. I've got the coal fed in. I need to upgrade that at some point. That's another thing on my list of things to do. But this is done. This was actually quite a small thing, actually, to be honest. It wasn't a big thing. It was just something else I needed to address. So, next. Oh, I had a plan for what was next. What was next? Let me have a little quick think. Ah, yes, that was what my plan was. Currently, well, at the moment, when I set up all these railway lines, I didn't really set it up with a full complement of railway signals. So I need to run around and check every railway line, make sure everything is segmented properly. And then I can start maybe... I'm trying to build towards trickling some sort of resources in. At the moment, I've got no plastic, so I'd really like some oil so I can get some plastic in and start getting some more stuff in. Just to build up the resources in the factory, get that moving. So yeah, whiz around, add some train signals. Railways, mostly done. Well, you know, who knows? I mean, let's put this into context. I've been picking up like bundles of railway signals out of my jumble shopping mall thing in quantities about 500-600 ago, and I've had to go back 2 or 3 times. So you know, I've just laid down about 1,000 or so of these railway signals. God knows if they're all in the right places and they're all doing the right job. And even if I've missed some areas, that's entirely likely. Who knows? You just until you run through a whole lot of trains through this thing, you're just never quite sure. Anyway, so next, Now, I talked about this area before. This area is annoying to me, and I've tried to ignore it. I've tried to run past it and just pretend like it doesn't exist, but it does exist, and it annoys me unbearably. So I'm going to fix it. The problem is this: is that I've kind of, when I laid this down, I didn't really have any much forethought about how it was going to tie into the rest of the factory, and it turns out that I've got this. Well, I've kind of positioned this path to be in a particular place so that so it lines up with the rest of the perimeter wall. And what it means is I need to move all of this stuff down. I mean, the reason why it's painful is because it's all rocket fuel and nuclear fuel and solid fuel, which you can't pick up in very big bundles. Like rocket fuel, you're going to pick up in bundles of 10. So you start removing this stuff, it fills up your inventory just super quick, and it becomes really, really painful to demolish and put back together again. Then you've got to find a way to get all of that stuff back into the system. It's just a pain. But I've tried to ignore it. I've done my best to pretend like it doesn't. Yeah. So I'm doing it. That's what I'm doing. So I need to demolish all of this, move it all down, and build the path in. I also need to figure out a way of elegantly getting the ammunition in, because this is that center line. So I've got the 2 pipes and the 2 conveyor belts delivering the ammunition, and that needs to tie in with how this kind of goes round. So I'm going to figure that. Demolish this center bit first, and then tie that in, work out how it's going to work, and then rebuild it. That's the plan. I mean, you might notice that I've got some railway lines here going to nowhere. This is an issue that's kind of come back to bite me a little bit. I have got too many railways. I mean, I've got 3 down here, which I'm starting to cap them off. I'm starting to kind of build around them and make them look slightly elegant, but really they're just an annoyance. Really what I should do is demolish them, but then that would make this, I'd have like this horrible 4-tile gap here. I really don't want that. I'd prefer just to leave them in there and have them empty, and then not used or whatever. So I'm debating whether to take it down, because I've got this opportunity to fiddle around with stuff, so I can move this over a little bit if I wanted to. I could maybe fill in the gap. We'll see how things play out. Anyway, that's what I'm doing now. And done. Done. Oh, I'm much happier. Much happier. Let's have a quick look on the map. Yeah, much happier. Yeah, this runs all the way through now. I've got my paths connecting up. I've added an extra train. So this kind of train track was kind of going to nowhere, and I had this spare spigot over here. So this wasn't attached to anything. So I figured, well, let's join it up. That's a nice little shortcut. Yeah. And I've got rid of the other 2. And I've just joined them together, and I've fudged the gap to fit it all in. Oh, I'm much happier. Oh, wow. I'm really glad I did it. Anyway, next problem. Water barrels. Water barrels still a problem. Now, some of you are probably watching this, and you're looking at me and you're going, what on earth is this dude doing with his water barrels? Jesus Christ. It doesn't work. It keeps going wrong. You know, you've got fair points. You know, this is my internal monologue, but it's completely fair. You know, it doesn't work very well. You know, no matter how many times I've built it, it's always gone wrong at some point. But I do feel like I'm getting to grips with it. I do feel like I'm understanding why. But so here's the thing. Everything I've got like a set amount. I've got like a third of the capacity of the trains running around. So I've got I've got a few trains coming in. You know, we're making a whole load of noise, and that means that we need a whole load of power. So power draw goes up with these water barrels. So does the barrel flux. If we go right back to what I was talking about, oh, this must be months ago now. And as the barrel flux goes up, we need more barrels in the system, and we've used all of them. You know, this is the kind of the temporary storage for the barrels, and that's completely empty. I disconnected the steel a long time ago because I didn't want any more barrels coming in. You know, I've got loads in my deep storage up here, and we are at a deficit. We are. I mean, if we look at the barrel lines that are running to the power, running through the factory, they're not full. They're not anywhere near full, and we need them to be full to get the full capacity out of them. So, plan of action is this. I'm going to completely demolish all of these barrels, all of these assembly machines that are making the barrels. I don't think I'll need it. I suppose if... Alright, okay, maybe just to start with, I'll keep a couple of them. But I'm going to... So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of these down, remove some of these assembly machines. I'm going to fill it with some storage boxes that will feed into the rest of the system, and I'm going to draw these barrels out of the deep storage into those chests and then feed that in, and then I'm going to use these barrels to fill the system up because it's in deficit, and hopefully, no matter, I mean, I'm really hopeful that this is going to be enough barrels. I mean, it's a lot of barrels that I've got over here. This should be plenty, I'm guessing. Now, okay, I'm going to go back to the original plan. I'm going to remove all of the assembly machines. I'm going to commit. I'm not going to need any more barrels than this. It's going to go in here. Yeah, that's what this is for. That's what I'm going to do now. Fix the barrels again. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. Much happier. Still not quite perfect. You know, we've got a couple of lines here which aren't completely full. You know, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for conveyor belts which are completely full of water barrels. And I've got two here which are halfway there. You know, these barrels, they take a little bit of time to work their way into the system. It's not just an instantaneous thing. And it's about inserting enough barrels to get it into that kind of magic window, that magic place, that magic balance for what you need for that power at that moment in time. And then as that power kind of moves over time, it will adjust slowly, and that's all okay. But you got to get it into that window, and that's what we're just kind of waiting for here. Yeah, as I build up more power, this is going to change. I'm going to have to keep an eye on this. If we have a look at my deep storage, you know, we've almost completely made our way through all of those barrels. Yeah, as I just said, this is something I'm going to need to keep an eye on. Power is going to change. The number of barrels is going to change. There's a lot here. Yeah, we'll see how it progresses. It's not a fixed item. In my mind, it's not fixed. You know, there's actually quite a lot of fundamental problems here. You know, if I was going to build this thing again, I would do it differently. Yeah, it's just that I'm now confined into this space, so I'm going to have to use what I have. Anyway, while I'm in this area, it's definitely worthwhile finishing off this little racetrack. It is just one of those other things that's on my mind that isn't done yet, so let's strike that one off as well. Each time I finish one of these things now, I get like a little boost. I'm like, yes, I've done something. Finished it. And then I come to the conclusion, oh no, I've got so much to do. So much still to do. Ugh, right, okay. So, racetrack done. Let's have a quick look in the map. Oh, that's not what I want. Alright, so I've extended it a little bit, give it a little bit more juice, give it a little bit more, you know, something to it. And that's kind of, yeah, anyway. That was what I was aiming for. That's what I've done. So, the next thing is for me to put in my alternative paths. So when I built this, I didn't actually build in. I've put in all the functionality for these alternative tracks layouts that I've got in the, you know, for the track, but I didn't actually build in the alternative routes. And this is one of those locations where I need one. So what I need is a track that starts over here. It comes. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it across. I'm going to bring it down somehow and then across over here. Maybe bring it all the way over to here and then something like that. That's what I'm going to do. There's another one of these. There's two of these little additional routes I need to add. This is the first one. And now for the second one, which is going to run from here, right over here, past my rocket silos, and join up with this edge over here. Got this nice big gap that I'm going to fit it in. And that's another thing, another big thing off my list. I suppose it's not really, it didn't take me that long. The reason why it probably exists in my mind as a big thing is because I'm having to demolish all of these conveyor belts. And all these conveyor belts are full of stuff, and that's just really annoying to pick up. Anyway, so finishing, we were on the last final straight here, so the last few things are as follows. Firstly, well, next, going to add in all my curbs, my red and white curbs. It's like I really like that. It tends to bring a certain amount of finish to the racetrack. Makes it look like a racetrack rather than just a bland strip of asphalt. So that's the next thing. After that, I'm going to run around and just connect absolutely everything with a green network cable. I want all of these racetracks to be connected to the same network, and it's all going to have to be connected so that I can run these. Well, then, which will be the next thing, which will be the gates, and that's what I want to do after I've set up the green network, is set up the gates. So I can kind of separate these junctions. Yeah, and then once I've got that all set up, I probably want to have a test of those gates, make sure that they're all operating the way that they should do with the functionality in the control panel. After I've done that, it will be the start sequence and the grid, probably grids plural, because I'll have to do the timing loop and the grid for the starter track as well. That's something I haven't done yet. And then once all of those things are done, then we are done too. That's it. I mean, well, I'd say 99.99% of the factory, that's it, finished, completed. There's still a fair amount of tinkering. You know, I could probably spend hours and hours just wandering around, fiddling with things. You know, I've got a fair amount of chests about full of waste and trash that I need to find a hole for them somewhere. That's, you know, none of this stuff is really interesting. It's just maintenance. It's just dribs and drabs. You know, all of the stuff that's interesting. Well, at least what I think is interesting. I think we're done with that. Yeah, that's it. Now, I mean, I've had a lot of time to think about how I was going to close out this series. You know, it's been a long old thing. 400 hours. That's a lot more hours. Let's have a, what is the actual total? 409. Yeah, it's a lot. It was. I think I was aiming for half of that. I think that was my original intention, was to do a base that was about 200 hours. So it's kind of got away from me a little bit. But I've had plenty of time to think about, you know, how I was going to end it. And I think my original intention was to finish off with something light-hearted, something like a joke. But you know, having edited this episode together, I really don't think that's what I want to do anymore. What I really want to do, I want to thank you all. I want to, you know, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you've made an effort to watch some of these videos, all of the videos, a very, very small part of these videos, then genuinely thank you. You know, I'm not naturally an extroverted person. I'm normally an introverted person. And on all my videos so far, I've tried to make a very conscious effort to kind of control the words that I've been talking. You know, everything else up to this point has been scripted, so I've had time to prepare. You know, time to fiddle with a script, get it right, get it where I'm happy with it. And all of this whole Let's Play has been improvised. It's just me talking out of my arse. It's just me rambling along, telling you what I'm doing. You know, So if you've stuck around for that, genuinely thank you, because I know, I watch YouTube like anybody else, and I see other YouTubers out there, and I know that I'm not the most, charismatic, entertaining person out there. That's not my character trait. My character trait is it's a design. It's a nerd. I'm a geek. I like to think about this stuff, and talking about it in a way that's entertaining, that's interesting, is not my natural. Particularly improvised. That's well outside of my comfort zone. So, I mean, in general terms, I've been happy with how the videos have gone. It's not a process I probably would have done. As I said, I try to create this channel that's a little bit unique and a little bit different, and this Let's Play series, that's something that everyone else has done. In my mind, I think I would have just thought I'll just be covering the same things that everyone else has covered, and that's more or less why I did the racetrack, because I wanted to do something that gave me something else that was different from everybody else. I want to create unique stuff, stuff that you won't see anywhere else. Even if it's the kind of unique that nobody else is interested in, that's absolutely fine by me. As long as if you come to my channel and you see stuff that you don't see anywhere else, then I'm happy. And in general, I'm happy with the content of my channel. I like the array of stuff on there, and this Let's Play has turned out to be a really, really good positive. I can't. It's opened my eyes to what's potential of what's possible, content-wise, where I can go with it. It's opened my eyes to a lot more avenues. If I tackle some other big subjects, I mean, when I did the Angel of Bob, I would have been really, really reluctant to tackle a 400-hour factory in a series of videos. I would have thought it would have just been boring. I would have thought no one would have been interested. And I think my sentiments would have been exactly the same for a vanilla factory. I think my initial thoughts would have been that no one who was going to watch that. And it was only because people asked me to make it that I've made it. And, I'm just genuinely just totally thankful for all of you who've watched. You've kept me going through this. It doesn't have to be a lot of views. It only has to be a few. It only has to be a few dedicated people who are really getting something from this for me to feel like it's worthwhile. And that's what's kept me going. That's what's made me finish. That's what's made me stick it out for these 400 hours. So thank you to all of you. Each and every one of you. If you're still here, you're just my favourite people. I'm tearing. No, I'm not going to say that. Going forward, I've obviously got a few ideas of further things that I want to do with this factory. I want to push its SPM. I want to try and have some sort of Grand Prix. That would be really cool. I want to have a test of the perimeter wall. But all of that stuff is in further videos. And this one and this series, that is it. So I hope you've found it interesting. I hope you've enjoyed it. Till next time.